honored guests, thank you for having us. So my name is Mac. I've been doing this for 30 years. If you want to know more, LinkedIn, we've got 20 minutes. And we want to try to do something that's going to give the audience takeaways, things you can take back to your organizations, a bit of food for thought. I feel a little bit like it's Groundhog Day, because we've been talking about convergence for what, a decade? And we've all given speeches about convergence, and listening to all the esteemed colleagues, yeah, we can't be siloed, and cyber and IT and physical need to talk to each other, and we need to be willing to listen, right? Who here has been in the industry a long time? All of you. Who's heard this story before? All of us. But here we are, yet again, talking about convergence. So usually, when you go to a conference and you see a presentation on convergence, it looks something like this. We have an access control system and everybody's involved, right? We have the physical guys, the maintenance, the surveillance, we've got the OT guys, we've got the IT guys, we've got the HR, and there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, security convergence. Who here thinks this is what we mean? Raise your hands if this is what security convergence should look like in an organization. Is that what we mean? Who says no? Oh, it's an uncommittal and non-committal audience. I love that. Who thinks this is a good example of convergence? Anyone? You know you're being set up, right? Who thinks it's a terrible idea? Okay, I feel you. And then you get these slides, right? Oh, I love these. You put them up there, nobody understands them, but they make the boardroom feel really good because we've got such structure and fancy names for everything. So let's try a slightly different approach to this whole concept of convergence. Is it convergence? If we think about all the security disciplines within our organizations as streams, tributaries of rivers, do they converge into one big lake and stay there? Do they come together? Yes or no? Do they? Oh, you guys are scared. Come on. Do our security disciplines merge into one? No. They come together at certain points, and then they head off in their own directions. There's plenty of things that cyber do that aren't necessarily directly connected to physical or intel or compliance on a daily basis. So I'm not the fan of the word convergence. I prefer a different word. That is not convergence. I prefer the word interoperability. We speak about cyber, IT, OT, physical, and people touched on HR. Correct? Those are the terms we've heard this morning about convergence, the different disciplines. But there are many more within an enterprise security risk management function. We've got technical measures, we've got executive protection. People travel globally, C-suite executives have executive protection. We have physical security, we have IT, we have cyber, we have compliance, we have governance. In Dubai, we're incredibly fortunate to have an organization like CIRA that provides guidance and standards, something you don't see in many places, in many countries, for security. But there's a governance, there's a standard that needs to be met, that needs to be complied to. So that is also part of our enterprise security risk management. There's top leadership. There's the structure, the corporate overlords. Do they buy in? There's workplace stability in some places is a challenge. There's travel risk management. There's HR. There's intel. These are all pieces that we need to consider if you want to talk about interoperability or convergence, whatever the term. But it's not just about cyber and physical and HR, or cyber, IT, OT. It's all of this, right, that touches on a big organization. And too often, even the convergence discussion is limited to 2 or 3 of the disciplines. Is HR a risk to the organization? Is that a vulnerable point in an organization? Yes or no? Yes. How often does the chief security officer and the HR director get together for a chat? Probably not that often. Do you discuss your vetting processes? What's the vetting processes for people who are going to hold key positions in your organization or have access to proprietary information, proprietary algorithms, customer information, data, finance? Right? No disrespect. I was chatting with someone from Heathrow Airport, speaking about baggage handlers. Okay, you vetted them. Sure you did. When you hired them. That was 2 years ago. How do you know they haven't become radicalized in the meanwhile? Something hasn't gone wrong. We never vet them again. HR is a huge vulnerability in organization. Very little cooperation goes on between HR and security. So we need to do better. So what we really need is interoperability, meaning all of these disciplines can operate together, can converge when they need to, can come together regularly. Not only, we're having the annual shareholders meeting. Oh, we better get the security guys involved. Security should be involved at every level of the organization, in every meeting, in every part. So let's delve into that. So if we stand back and we look at all these pieces of an enterprise security risk management function, there are a lot of them. Does anybody think that there are any pieces, right, of an ESRM program that don't influence each other? Cyber, we know. Travel risk management, does it not interface with intelligence? Does it not interface with the GSOC? Does it not interface with IT? Oh, my CEO is going on a trip to China. We don't think we need some IT advice for that trip? Probably a good idea, right? So travel risk management, IT, not separate. One of the esteemed, I think it was Andrew, who was saying, travelers from your organization, they're heading out on a business trip to Africa or to wherever, right? They need to know about IT. What's the governance? What's the travel risk policy for the company? You've got 2 senior vice presidents. Are they allowed to fly on the same plane together? There was a mining company, yes, from Australia, that was entirely wiped out because the entire board was on a plane in Africa. Plane crashed, board was killed, company gone. It was actually against their protocols, right? But governance, compliance, travel risk management, HR, all interlinked. All these pieces cannot be separated out. And very seldom do all of them speak. Very seldom do all of them get around the table. 2 or 3 of them might meet up occasionally for a specific purpose. But truthfully, that's really not good enough. So the question is, how do we get better? So to this end, I've stolen something from the world of computers, which I don't profess to understand anything about, but they've got some pretty cool ideas. So when you look at interoperability in computing systems, there are 3 levels. So the first one is foundational interoperability. So the key characteristics, the most basic foundation, if we think about enterprise security risk management, is data exchange. Let's start at the beginning. Right? So this enables transmission and the reception of data between our different disciplines. All of those disciplines. How do we start with data exchange? Well, there has to be an open port, right? There has to be a willingness for each discipline to sit down and listen and receive data, right? So the output, I need to be willing to share. I'm the EP guy or the cyber guy. I need to be willing to share what I do with a different discipline, and the other discipline needs to be willing to listen. But how does it usually go, folks? Well, if I'm the cyber guy, I think the physical guys are knuckle draggers, and they're not that bright. And if I'm a physical guy, I think the cyber guys are geeks, and they don't understand what security is, and they're theoretical security people. HR think it's got nothing to do with us, right? Everybody thinks that compliance is a bit of a pain, so we'll just ignore them and hopefully they won't come and bug us. We need to firstly establish that we're willing to sit down and talk, and it's important. Piece number 2 is basic connectivity, right? So we need to know each other. I can't remember if it was Philip or Andrew, saying, when you join an organization, do you get introduced? Do we take you around and say, this is the security manager, this is the IT, this is OT, this is the Intel department, this is the GSOC? Do we actually even know who's in the organization within that enterprise security risk management structure? Do we take the trouble to get to know who's who? Hey, you need to speak to HR. No idea who that is. What number, what floor are they on? Right? That's not the right basis if you start talking about convergence. So you need to establish basic connectivity. We need to know who's who in the organization. And the last piece of the foundation is you need some sort of protocol, some sort of transmission standard or function, whether that's email, whether that's a weekly meeting, a monthly meeting, reports, any sort of shared Microsoft SharePoint, whatever it is. But you need to establish how you're going to communicate through which channels, right? Because otherwise it's, oh yeah, I sent you an email, I left you a handwritten love letter, post it on your computer, or we upload it to a SharePoint. So each division does what they do. We need to establish kind of common protocols for communications within the organization. So we know where we're communicating. So a willingness to speak and be heard and listen, a way to do that, and we need to know who we need to speak to. Moving up a section, we get to structural, interoperability. So this starts to get a bit more complex. So firstly, we need a common language because, wow, when the cyber department or even half the Intel guys start speaking, you get lost somewhere along the way through no fault of your own, but you're not an IT specialist, you're not an OT specialist. So you need to find a language between the different disciplines, a way of communicating to understand that when the EP team are speaking to the cyber team or the cyber team are speaking to HR, speak in a language that people understand. Don't speak in code. Have a way of communication agreed upon that we all speak in the same language. So if I say threat, I say elevated threat, I say reduced threat, I say acceptable level of threat. What does that mean? It means something to me. It means something different to the IT guy and sometimes something different to the Intel guy. You all heard it's a high threat environment. Okay. Ukraine, high threat environment, right? Right now, maybe Pakistan, India, high threat environment. UK, is it a high threat environment? Yes or no? Who says yes? Hands, UK, high threat environment. Low threat environment, hands. And all the non-committal people. We don't want to say, we don't want to get it wrong. Right? But if you consider the attack that was allegedly just stopped in the UK, that's pretty scary. Nowhere in the world is really a low threat environment, so to speak, except a few happy pockets. Dubai, thank God. Low threat environment, safest city in the world. Amazing. Very, very, very few countries and cities can make that claim. Right? We go into the Western world, everywhere has a fairly high level of threat, and then there are super elevated levels. But we need to have a common language. Second one is ensure data is exchanged in a consistent and recognizable format. Right? So whichever way we're sharing, I'm sharing physical threats, you're sharing IT threats, you're sharing threats from AI. But the format that we present it, if we're in a meeting, should be in the same threat matrix or whatever you want to call it. For example, we use a methodology called discover, design, deliver. Right? So when we're creating a security program, first discover, right? Discover, do all your TVRAs, your threat assessments, your analysis, your digital vulnerability assessments, your cyber assessments, your physical assessments. Firstly, discover, do your MRI and your blood work, right? Discover what the situation is, then design whatever security measures, whatever program you're going to design, and then deliver, implement. And throughout our organization, it doesn't matter which discipline we're doing, discover, design, deliver. It's a methodology that we use. So within this organization, same thing. Once you start speaking about true convergence or interoperability, you must all be speaking the same language in the same format. So when one discipline speaks about something, everybody's on the same page. The last piece is what we call semantic, which is the highest level. This is where the disciplines begin to understand each other. So that me as the physical guy my eyes don't glaze over when the IT people start speaking, but I actually start to get a real understanding of the threat landscape that exists in cyber and in IT. And they start to get a real understanding, the Intel division, who are providing intel for, I don't know, your executive protection teams who, wherever in the world, and you've got some Intel analyst who's banging out intel to the EP team, but he doesn't even know what executive protection is. He's never seen an executive protection operative. He's never been on an assignment. He doesn't know what it is he's supporting. When we start to actually get a small understanding of all the different disciplines and what everybody does and the importance. I was years ago at a huge facility in the United States in New York, and I discovered that they'd given me a temporary badge. I discovered that I could keep badging in without badging out, which I shouldn't be able to do, right? Because then I could badge in, give my badge to another guy, he can badge in. So I asked the security manager, he said, "You can't do that." So I said, "Well, come with me." And I badged in again. So he said, "But it shouldn't happen." Okay, so we went up to IT, and they went, "Yeah, bro, we disabled that function during a systems check a few weeks ago." I was like, "Okay." And you didn't reinstate it. And you didn't think to tell the director of security that you were disabling part of his access control system? You didn't think that was important? And that is in a serious facility. But if they would understand the importance of their actions to the physical security, maybe they would share it. And then the last piece of the puzzle, which is the hardest, is the contextual awareness. And that's when we start tracking KPIs, metrics, data, and start measuring the threat landscapes against each other. And we look for correlations, right? How many of the cyber hacks are physical hacks, right? Either a USB something, or like the Target hack where they got a USB in the air conditioning company and hopped onto Target servers and stole data. Social engineering, manipulation, right? Recruiting people within the organization. So tracking metrics and tracking correlation between the different threat landscapes, be they cyber, be they IT, be they physical, be they HR, that's already super advanced. So this all sounds really lovely and peachy, and we've been talking about it for years. So my question to the audience is, in the last 1 minute 30, why aren't we doing it? Why aren't more organizations effectively communicating across the security spectrum, across the organizations, in a meaningful way? Because I would say that if we were doing it, if most organizations had a fully developed and converged or interoperable security apparatus, I wouldn't be up here talking about it, would I? Convergence wouldn't have been a topic. It wouldn't be a topic anymore. We'd just say, well, clearly, obviously, every a large organization does all these things. It should be clear as day, right? Yet, all my esteemed colleagues are up here on the stage from the first panel, from the first speech, repeating, we can't be siloed, we have to speak, right? The merged and the converged threat landscape now, and now we're introducing AI, deep fakes. So in the panel coming up right now, we've got some amazing subject matter experts, and that's what we're going to chat about. Right? What are the obstacles? What is preventing us from realizing this utopian picture that we all know should be, but somehow few organizations get it right? We have 35 seconds for questions. If there are no questions, it's great. You know what that tells me? Always, either you understood everything or nothing, right? But either way, I'm okay with that. So in the last 20 seconds, John, we can I think bring up the panel.